Welcome to Brown's Lab. This is a documentary I made about 10 years ago. That's me. That's Fat Max Rosenheim, my father's Jewish boss. This is my sister gritting, showing her teeth. I'm not. She, that's my mother, Kamalini. My father calls Camel. Yeah, Camel! Come here, Camel! This is his mistress, Joyce R. Chong, who I was trained to call Auntie Joyce. She lived with us in Kandy in the same house as my mother. She's one of my father's colleagues. I think that's Chris Urugoda.
Hello, is that Joyce? Hi. I'm looking at a photograph of you. It's Ramesh Senewiratne. I'm looking at a photograph from about 1971. And it's with Max Rosenheim. You remember him? Unusual reaction, isn't it? I rang this lady here. She's in her 70s now, also 80, perhaps, and she's my father's secretary.
His mistress.
This man here with his trousers well up in his belly, his name is Max Rosenheim.
Fat Max.
And that's me standing behind him. And when I was told that I was going to be meeting Sir or Lord Max Rosenheim, I was told that if I spoke to him at all, I was to address him as Lord Sir Max Rosenheim. Yes, Max Rosenheim gave me some felt pens, and he gave a packet of felt pens to my sister as well. That's my sister standing next to me. That's my mother. That's my mother sitting next to Max Rosenheim. And these are two of my father's colleagues. So welcome to Brown's Lab, a documentary on the laboratory that Max Rosenheim was instrumental in funding. And this is the team. This is in the 1970s, early 1970s. The person on the far right, that's my father. Next to him is my mother. And
That's his lover.
yeah, that's the team that did research in Sri Lanka between 1970 and 1975 and 1976. And that's what this documentary is about. I have three sources of information about the lab and what was done there. And one is my father's own records that he has made public. That's my father over there. That's my father more recently on the right. And this is the publication, self-published, What I Taught and Learnt in Sri Lanka, The Musings of a Senile Teacher. That's one source, and the other source is what my father actually published. And a few of these things are on the internet, but most are not. And these are the publications. But not everything that he did was published. For example, the work that he did, that's what it is, the work that he did on rabies and cholera and infectious diseases, and that wasn't published apart from a single paper on urinary infections. And this is the person who organized for the building of the lab, Lord Rosenheim.
That is not his name.
Emeritus Professor of Medicine at University College Hospital. Now, until recently, President of the Royal College of Physicians, who died on the 2nd of December 1972. And as I said, that photograph was taken in 1971 when he came and visited the lab, as it was called. It was called the lab. The other source of information is my mother's journal. And my mother was the co-author of some of the papers, but this is her handwriting. And she compiled these journals between 1970 and 1976, or late 1975. The last of the entries is this strip over here. October 1975. It's a clip of just my father and mother. And my mother drew some very detailed maps in her journal. And these strips were trips mainly during the time that they were doing a survey on fluoride. Yes, fluoride. And that's one of the papers that was given to me. Ramesh, Indian Journal of Medical Research, the distribution of fluoride containing water in Ceylon. Now, this is a very interesting article because of the distribution of fluoride poisoning, fluoride toxicity. There, it's in the Bard area, and I've written some notes on it. very recently, because from my understanding of British military history during the Second World War, these would be likely sites of dumping of fluoride toxin, fluoride waste, industrial waste in the Second World War, because Trincomalee was a very important base during the Second World War, naval base for the British. And the other port on the east coast is Batticaloa. There's a small area of high fluoride toxicity, big area near Trincomalee, just between Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa, which are two ancient Buddhist cities. So that was the fluoride studies. I'm going to be talking about them a bit. And I'm going to talk about, this is my third source of information. These are my own, this is my own science book, my notebook from when I was a child. And you can see that these are the things that interested me at that age. And one of the things I knew about was blood, page 155. There we are. Blood. I started that in 1971, so this is when I was 10 years old. And that's my mother's writing. The word platelets and help blood clot, that's my writing. When I was 10, and I've written carry oxygen, fight infections. In fact, red cells don't fight infections, but they do carry oxygen. And, sorry, I made a mistake. Red corpuscles, yes, carry oxygen. White corpuscles fight infection. So it was correct, because of the white cells. And the red cells. And my mother showed me how to recognize the different types of white cells under a microscope. And then over here is the main thing I'm going to be focusing on in my research at the moment. Malaria. Malarial parasite, Plasmodium. And that's how you recognize it. The ring stage, the schizont, Schuffner's dots, the amoeboid stage, the schizont, the trophozoite, merozoite, and the gametocyte. And I did a little bit of revision on that today, which I'll share with you a little bit later, because it might give some ideas about how we can combat malaria in the modern world. After I show you a little bit about why I think we're failing to control malaria. And that's because of the people who are funding the research and the nature of the research and the treatment programs of the World Health Organization and the United Nations. So this is my own drawing of how to make a blood film. This is obviously a fairly unusual training for a 10-year-old child. And the reason that I had this unusual training is because of the lab. And that's my mother showing me different types of anemia. Normochromic, hypochromic, these are my drawings, and these are poikilocytosis, which are the signs of iron deficiency. There are sickle cells and acanthocytes. Now, target cells and Burr cells. So what they were looking at is hemoglobinopathies, abnormal hemoglobins. And that's one of the topics of research. The big one was anemia. And here you get an idea of what kind of research was being done on anemia. Those were the research subjects. They were people who were working on the tea estates, Indian Tamil tea estate workers, the descendants of Indian slaves, who still virtually slaves themselves. It says, tea pluckers waiting to be bled and fed with iron. And that's some of the lab workers. My father had a number of young people working in the lab with him. Some of them were recent graduates, his registrar, and he was building himself a little empire. And the funding for this lab was built just around there, adjacent to his ward at the Kandy Hospital. That's his ward, where he first got there in 1968. And these are the beds. It's being visited. My father makes the point. Inside the ward, after painting by us, the tie was to impress visitors from the Hope ship. Alright, I'll explain to you a little bit about the Hope ship. They're the Americans. The Americans were the Hope ship. Now, as I said, the person who sponsored this research or organized for the grant that my father got from the Nuffield Foundation was Lord Max Rosenheim. In fact, Lord Max Rosenheim, before he died, became Baron Max Rosenheim. And there's not a lot about him on the internet. Not a lot at all. But this is a paper. It's one of his lectures that he gave when he was the director of the medical unit of the University College Hospital, London, but he was a bit more than that. It was the Lumleian lecture delivered at the Royal College of Physicians of London in 1963. Now, he was also the professor of medicine at the University of London, but he was basically Britain's most senior doctor. He was of Jewish origin, and he was a senior doctor in the British military during the Second World War. And I'll show you the little bit that is there on him on Wikipedia, so that you can get an idea of the people who were pulling the strings behind the lab. So this is the Wikipedia page on Max Leonard Rosenheim, Baron Rosenheim, born on the 15th of March 1908 and died on the 2nd of December 1972. Was a British physician and academic. As you can see, there's not a lot about Max Rosenheim. There's not even a photograph of him. But I'll show you some photographs. You can find a few photographs of him on the internet. But I'll just read that to you. Rosenheim was born in London and educated at Shrewsbury School, St John's College, Cambridge, and University College Hospital Medical School. In 1938, he was awarded the Dillon Pollard Travelling Fellowship and worked as research assistant for Dr. Fuller Albright at the Massachusetts General Hospital. He joined the Royal Army Medical Corps in 1941 and served in the Middle East and Italy, leaving the army as a brigadier. From 1945 to 1946, he was consultant physician in the Allied Land Forces in Southeast Asia. From 1949, for the next 21 years, he was professor of medicine at University College Hospital, resigning in 1960. Now, 1949 to 9 plus 21 years makes it 1969, not 1960. In fact, it makes it 1970. So there's obviously a mistake somewhere there. I'm not quite sure which one it is. It says he retained his links with UCH, however, acting as a part-time physician. His own particular medical interests were renal disease and hypertension, and he was among the first in his profession to convince his fellows that hypertension, which is high blood pressure, could be treated. He delivered the Lumleian lecture at the Royal College of Physicians in 1963, entitled Problems of Chronic Pyelonephritis. In 1966, he was elected president of the Royal College of Physicians and elected a Fellow of the Royal Society. And here it has a list. In personal life, it says Rosenheim never married. Indeed. So this is basically other titles. Mr. Max Rosenheim. In 1932, he became Dr. Max Rosenheim. In 1938, he became Dr. Max Rosenheim, MRCP. In 1941, he became Dr. Max Rosenheim, FRCP. In 1950, right, so he was Dr. Max Rosenheim, FRCP, during and immediately after the Second World War. Then he became Professor Max Rosenheim from 1950